Okay everyone, welcome back to the channel today for a video on Gran Turismo Sport. We're back with the FIA Nations race at Lagos Major in the Audi TT. Now this wasn't a single make race, it was a Group 4 race, but as usual at the moment the FFs are dominant, and this was my first ever race in FIA with an FF car because I dislike these cars, and I decided not to do the top 16 race because I wasn't competitive, and I'm actually really glad that I didn't do that because I would have just been around the back. But this race we managed to qualify P2, and we're about to enjoy one of my favourite races on the game, I would say, purely because one, it was a good battle with Quentin, and two, it's a car that I don't normally drive. I'm not used to driving it. I don't like FF cars, and also I don't really particularly enjoy this track. It's never really been a good track for me. So let's see if we can enjoy a race here as we start from P2. An okay qualifying lap, wasn't particularly rapid enough. I think it was probably 2/10 of what I should be getting, but still starting from P2. We've got Org in this race also in the Citroen quite far back. Obviously it doesn't qualify very well, that car, but in the race condition quite strong because I think it could get away with much less tyre changes, and the fuel on that car is pretty insane. So following behind Quentin now, doing a little bit of short shifting while in the slipstream. So this was back when the slipstream was still at that horrible 1.5 seconds range. What a difference it makes to have that gone, I have to say. I think it's so much better now that the slipstream is back at the original, I think it's 8 temps range. For me, that is pretty much perfect for GT Sport. It's still very strong in that range, but it allows you to actually break the slipstream and try and pull away if you're on a different strategy. So if you've got a different tyre, it really gives you the ability to pull away from that harder compound tyre much easier. But for this race we had to just use, I think it was the hard tyre, I can't remember, but obviously most people using the mediums as well because they were so fast. It might have actually been both tyres we had to use, but starting the race off on the medium tyre. The Audi TT, probably going to be a 3-stop race for the Audi TT. I think you could do a 2-stop race, but at the moment we're trying to preserve some fuel. You can see how insane the fuel is on this car. I did actually do some testing in a few other cars like the 650. The 650 could manage about 16 laps with a bit of fuel saving, but the Audi TT 21 laps. A 5-lap advantage on the fuel really if you really wanted to short shift, and that shows you just how dominant this car is when it comes to fuel. You know, that is a long amount of time in the pits that you'll be waiting to refuel. But at the moment you can see we're getting a bit of a gap developing from P3 behind. Top 3 seems to be pulling away here as we're working our way through this really twisty section, and just sticking behind Quentin. You can see there taking that tight line, just sticking behind him, trying to save the tyres while short shifting. So yeah, really important with these FF cars is that you very gentle on the throttle. You see that gap developing between the two groups of cars. The lead battle seems to be generating here. Top 3 pulling away and just trying to stay behind Quentin and short shift, save tyres. Like I say, you really need to be gentle with this. Like, I'm not used to driving FF cars. This is a learning curve for me. I was just trying to be very gentle on the throttle, trying to save tyres, trying to save fuel, and just trying to stay behind Quentin really at the moment. I don't think we're both particularly great with these type of cars. I think Quentin hadn't really done that much practice either, so it was just a case of just hold on to this position. It wasn't for big points. I think that the winners were only going to get from this race 315 points or something like that, so it was more about the enjoyment of the race. And I actually have to say, I think it made the race more enjoyable, not worrying about getting points. It was more about the entertainment of the race, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed this race. Probably one of, like I say, this was one of my favourite races in a long time on the game. Now, a lot of the race was tactical, sitting behind, trying to save tyres, picking when you want to go into the lead. But yeah, it's still an enjoyable experience when you've got a good, clean, close racing with other cars. We've got the driver behind us there, hanging on. I wasn't sure whether he was max revving that TT or whether he was saving fuel, but me and Quentin, I knew Quentin was saving fuel because I could see how much I was gaining even when I was short shifting. So yeah, obviously the slipstream very strong though still, but trying to do as much fuel saving behind Quentin as possible. You can see the tyre wear already starting to kick in. We're on lap 4 in this race. We've skipped ahead a little bit further, and you can see that tyre wear is starting to kick in a little bit. This Audi TT through here was so strong. The grip you got on the front end of the car through there with the rotation was quite abnormal. Even the Cayman wouldn't grip like that through there even on fresh tyres. As we go and decide to go for a move, I decided to do this because I wanted to try and break away from P3 because I wasn't sure if he'd be saving fuel behind myself and Quentin with that double toe. Now obviously these are drivers that we don't normally race against because this was the race after the, like 10 minutes after the top 16 race. So these, normally we're racing with the people that are in the top 16, but we decided to go for this race instead. I could have done the top 16, but decided to go for this race, more for my enjoyment really. I could have done it and finished right at the back and not really had a good race, but in this race we're competitive and it's actually an enjoyable race. We're in the lead now. We're going to do some short shifting. We're trying to save them tyres. You can see we've done a reasonable job on them front tyres. 4 laps completed and there is still some life left in them. You can see that P3 seems to be hanging on, but one thing I did notice was when looking in the mirror, P3 seemed to be like driving quite aggressive. As we skip ahead now to the first pit stop phase, Quentin actually pitted on lap 7 and the driver behind us there, just nearly outside the slipstream range. He was just inside it, still with the very strong 1.5 second range that was on when we did this race. As we come out the pits now, and you're going to see Quentin, we put another set of medium tyres on. We've got the McGann going down there. We stay to the right hand side, give Quentin the space, but he isn't close enough to go for a move there, and we keep hold on to that P1 position. So he's pitted that lap earlier, so his tyres are a lap older and he's still behind us. That is good news for ourselves, as we're now following the McGann, which is going to be pretty easy to get past. We're going to be brutally honest, because fresh tyres on the Audi TT, it'll be a breeze to get past that McGann. The McGann will just not have the straight line speed to be able to defend against the Audi TT. So you're going to see this now as we approach the McGann on the inside. Decided to take that tight line. We've got fresh tyres and we should have the grip. Get on the throttle nice and early. The McGann obviously carries that wide line, does have speed up straight, but he decides to just bump draft us up the hill, because if he would have gone to the left, he would never have got past the Audi TT with the straight line speed. So now we've got a car in between ourselves and Quentin. This will be interesting. How long can we stay ahead of Quentin and try and maybe break the slipstream? You can see Quentin, I don't think he's going to wait around. As we look in the mirror and also look in that bottom left hand corner, you can see he's probably going to go for a move straight away and try and get past McGann, but he's having trouble there. You can see in the mirror the McGann obviously is following his normal line. Good grip through here for the McGann, quite a good sector of track for the McGann there. The McGann is going to be quite strong, but now we're on to the straight line section where again the McGann is going to be pretty easy pickings from behind. You can see in that bottom left hand corner as Quentin there going for the move on the inside behind ourselves, and now Quentin back up to P2. Now we do have them fresher tyres. It'll be interesting. What do we do with strategy? This is the only problem. Like, it's such an advantage getting an undercut if he's right behind us when we come into the pit stop phase. As we again look at that replay camera with ourselves just in the lead there, carrying along. You see quite a few cars behind us, but I think we're on different strategies of pitting some of these cars. I think some of these cars behind us possibly haven't pitted yet and are still on their first stint, and we're going to probably pull away from them quite quickly with these fresh medium tyres. Myself, Quentin are on here, and obviously the other Audi TT, the orange Audi TT there as well, is on them fresh medium tyres, as he's now working his way past that McGann, and he's probably going to find that McGann easy pickings again on the main straight. You can see, yeah, straight past. You can see on the camera there as we work our way up to the top of the hill, still trying to do short shifting. Now maybe we decided to go for that move on Quentin a little bit earlier. Like I say, we did it on lap 4, I think it was, or lap 5. I decided to get ahead and try and break away from the traffic, but now we're in a situation where we're having to be the lead car, and we can't go too slow because we're going to let other cars catch up, and the cars behind have probably got a little bit of advantage in terms of saving fuel for these laps now. We're a little bit further on in the race. We did have 4 or 5 laps, I think it was like 4 laps behind the slipstream, but now we've been in the lead for like 7 laps of this race, 6 laps of this race, as we're now starting lap 11 in the lead still. That is the main thing though, we're still in the lead of the race. It's going to be a very close race. You can tell by the way Quentin's staying with us. I wasn't sure, like I say, about the orange Audi in terms of what tyre management his was like. He was fading off in that first stint. Was he using up more fuel? Was he revving the car out? Now obviously I knew that Quentin's fuel would be pretty similar to mine. We both drive in top split. We both know that you need to save fuel. Otherwise you're going to get absolutely destroyed when you come to the pit stop phase. Also, another thing is, if you have to refuel, you have to be careful in this game that you don't pit too far towards the end, because the game will require you to put more fuel in than you'd actually want to. So that's another thing as we work away. If you get to the last stop and you've only got 1 lap left, the game will make you put more fuel than you actually need for 1 lap. So you'll find that most people will do their refueling on the last stint on the mediums in this race, because that is the best time to really do it. So when we pit on about lap 14, something like that, you'll find that me and Quentin will probably put fuel in it. It'll be interesting to see what the fuel was of the orange Audi TT. I haven't checked this yet, so we'll try and keep an eye on that when we go in the pits and see what the fuel differences is between the two, all three cars as we go in the pits, and whether we're putting fuel in or what as we work our way up the hill. Start another lap. You see lap 12 now, still in the lead, trying to keep it consistent, trying to look after them front tyres. You can hear it with the revs, you can see it with the dial as well on the track, on the telemetry, where we're going 50% throttle until we get on the power where the car's straightened up, to try and look after the tyres. If you're putting the power on while you're turning with this car, that is what's killing the tyres, because obviously it's front wheel drive. Putting power on through the corner is going to really take life out of the car in terms of tyre life on them front. So yeah, trying to be very gentle on the throttle. One thing I will say with this Audi TT is your grip and the ability to ride the curbs is like nothing I've experienced in Group 4. I've never really driven this car, and the front end grip, even on slightly worn tyres, it's insane. The car weighs literally nothing. So yeah, I can see why this car is quite dominant at the moment. I do expect it to get a big BOP change soon. I think it needs to have a little bit more weight added and some power took off it or something. Maybe some like 2% weight added to it, maybe keep the power. It needs something there just to slow it down a little bit. And obviously it depends on time, and if they do high tyre wear races, obviously the TT is going to die. But with these lower tyre wear races, I think this was even ×8 with mediums on, and it was still the car to go as we work our way down the main straight to start another lap. You see Quentin getting very close behind us. I wasn't sure if he wanted to get in the lead. Maybe I should have let him get in the lead at this stage. It's very hard to, you know, do you sit behind the car and maybe go for a different strategy? The problem that I've got now is that I'm leading the pack, and if I pit, he can pit. Maybe if I was behind, I could then extend or pit earlier and try and get an undercut. It's very, you know, it's all hearsay, you know, if you do this before, you know, after a race, etc. But at the moment, it's going quite well. We're in the top 3. You can see that that orange TT is still there, hanging in the slipstream. Obviously, this was, like I say, still running that really long slipstream range, and we've got the other Audi TT and P4 that's just hanging in there in the distance. I'm not sure if he's in the slipstream range. It's very hard to be able to tell from the replay camera. He might just be hanging in that 1.5 second range. But so far, going okay. We're doing a reasonably good job in this race. Obviously, we did do some earlier slots with the Audi TT as well. Pretty much mid-pack, wasn't particularly fast, wasn't particularly slow. But this race definitely started to pick it up a bit, started to get used to the car a little bit more. I only decided to drive this, I think it was the night before we did this race, because I decided to try it in time trial and realised just how strong this car was around this track. I was going to use the BMW M4 actually here, and I did notice that not many people even tried it. The M4 was actually quite a good car for this track. The fuel saving was good, the tyres were pretty solid, and the car was very strong around the track. But I decided not to go with that. I was also thinking of the McLaren as well. The McLaren felt quite good here, but the TT was just too strong for myself in terms of qualifying as well. It was so good in qualifying, and luckily I picked it, and we managed to qualify P2 in this race, as we're still maintaining that lead position with Quentin behind us. We're coming to lap 14 now. We're coming to the second pit stop range of the race. You can see someone going in the pits there from around P7, 8 there, deciding to pit that lap earlier to try and get an undercut as we're going through these sector times, trying to keep it nice and smooth. And we've obviously got that lap pressure tyre, so you can see it starting to take effect on Quentin there through there. You can see we have got a little bit of extra grip through them fast corners where he's starting to struggle with a little bit of tyre life, and then we work our way onto the acceleration again. You can see pulling away, but the problem is we've got that big slipstream, as you see Quentin behind us. Not worrying about the slipstream. I think he's decided to stay to the right. Not worrying about staying in that, because it's not actually a long straight there. You can see about 7 tenths behind. But yeah, we can't seem to break away from this 1.5 slipstream. And again, this shows you why I think the new slipstream is really, you know, a lot better, because in this situation we'd be out of that slipstream, and I could probably carry on now. We see we got that gap to 8 tenths or around that mark. We could have probably carried on, as we now decide to go for a pit stop. I was going to carry on, but because we pit, Quentin pits. Maybe I should have stayed out then and then force Quentin into an earlier pit stop. This stop, we're going to put our fuel in. Let's have a little look at the fuels. You can see that we definitely have more fuel than the orange TT. I decided to go a little bit extra, and we come out the pits, and you can see that Quentin's still behind us. But look what's happened there. He's made the mistake of what I was talking about. I think P1 has forgot to refuel, or he's refueled up a very small amount, because he's now going to be forced to pit very early for them hard tyres, which is not what you want to do, because these at this stage of the race, the mediums are going to easily go to like lap 21, 22, something like that. He's going to be forced into an earlier stop. I noticed it when we pitted that he mustn't have refueled, so I knew that the 2.2 second gap, he's going to have a lighter car, so he should have a slightly faster car. But as long as we stay with him, I think he's out of this race as far as I could tell, because his fuel when we went in the pits was too low. He didn't have the fuel compared to myself and Quentin. I did notice Quentin had a slight bit, I think he had a slight amount more fuel than myself. Not a massive amount, just a tiny bit more. So pretty close. He was in the slipstream for a little bit longer than myself, though. Obviously lap 15 now. We took the lead on lap 4 or 5, I think it was. So yeah, 2/3 of the race we've been in the lead with no slipstream, been able to save fuel. So yeah, he's probably gained a little bit from being able to short shift that little bit more while in the slipstream as we go through this very technical section, especially with the Audi TT where the understeer is so strong through some of these corners. Being very patient on the throttle, you can see there with that 40-50% throttle, and then just getting on the throttle, getting very close to the wall, almost coming into contact with the wall as we start lap 16 in this racing. See, we actually gained a few attempts on the leader there, even though he is running a much lighter car. Quite a strange strategy. Maybe he didn't think about the fuel situation, deciding that he'll run fuel up on the last stint and run more laps on the hard tyre. Everyone has their own strategies, but I don't think that was the correct strategy to run in this race. You can see Quentin getting very close there now, but we're going to skip through to lap 17 now, just a lap ahead, and you can see that gap is still coming down to the leader. We've got Quentin right behind us. Obviously, I think now you kind of want to get in the lead of the race. You can see Quentin, we're both on equal tyres now. I should have really, I think, extended a lap extra when he was starting to struggle with tyres, and I think we might have been able to break that slipstream, but now we're going to have to go defensive. He's going to go down the right hand side and try and get down around the outside. That's going to be a very difficult move to make, but yeah, we managed to cover that off. He's going to have a better line through here now. We try and widen the car in, early upshift to 4th gear to try and stop that understeer. He's then going to try and go to the right hand side of the track and then throw it down the inside. We're going to go through here almost side by side. Great racing going on here now as we both give each other time. And then again, space into the final corner without squeezing him too much there, making sure that he doesn't get squeezed into the wall. Obviously there's a wall there. If there would have been a runoff area, I would have probably have squeezed him a little bit more than that to the outside of the track or even to the edge of the track, but with a wall being there, you can't really do that. And now into turn 1, still side by side. We decided to back out of that, try and get the undercut and get the drag out of the corner, and we're back down to P3 now in this race, but we've got that slipstream, so we can start doing a little bit of fuel saving. It was needed. You can see my fuel is quite low. We have got enough fuel in, but we're just getting a little bit low on fuel as we work our way through this really fast twisty section. I actually thought that Quentin might have got a penalty there. You can see as he cut that corner, he looked like he went right over four wheels over, and I was a little bit unsure whether he'd get a penalty for that, but seems to have got away with that as he takes that tight line, but then goes to the outside of the track. We're going to try and get on the power nice and early through here, but again, yeah, that TT just struggling to get on the power when we're following a car, but now we've got that slipstream working our way up the hill. It does look like that Quentin is very close to picking up the slipstream with P1 also, so unfortunately for myself, I was just about to get the slipstream, but then Quentin got that move done. We would have been in the slipstream and probably been able to defend even more. However, P1 is clearly going to have to pit very early in this race because of the strategy that he has gone on. But you see Quentin there taking that line. I took a very different line through here. Tried to get the car straightened up and then on the throttle a little bit different. As you see, P1 having to pit 0 litres of fuel. He is 100% out this race. You can see me and Quentin probably on about 26%, something like that. Yeah, his race is over, so he's not involved with this battle now. That was clearly not the right strategy for him. He wasn't fuel saving. He was just revving the Audi TT right to the max by the looks of it. But now the race continues. We skip ahead to lap 21. Now this was quite, I didn't know what to do here. We're behind Quentin, saving fuel, and I did see that the tyre wear is starting to pick up. Obviously the pace on the lower end of the fuel is quite strong, and that seems to be wearing the tyres out quite badly. So I decided to go for a bit of a risky strategy and take the hard tyres a lap earlier. Now the reason for this is the hard tyres fresh with light fuel might actually be able to match or maybe beat the medium tyres at the stage they're in. So you can see I decided to go for an early stop and gamble on the hard tyres being a little bit faster, and this is very risky. You can see our fuel on 12%, just about enough to do 2 laps. But yeah, how will this work out in terms of can we get the jump over Quentin? This is going to be really interesting now. So we've got to do quite a strong outlap here and keep it nice and clean. Try and make sure that we concentrate on hitting the corners. It's quite difficult when you've got the cold hard tyres on, but you know, we're going to see what we can do as we work our way down this little straight here before the twisty section, which is going to be pretty difficult on the hard tyres when they're cold, but let's see. try and make sure we get it done nicely into the corner. Did that quite nice, staying on the throttle in 5th gear there, actually doing that pretty nice. Didn't get on the apex perfectly, but we did actually, not too bad actually, quite nice through there. And now into this left hand corner. How will the hard tyres cope with this long sweeping left hand corner? You can see the delta is, we're gaining in some areas, losing in other areas. It's going to be extremely close. It does look like the hard tyres might have the edge over them worn medium tyres. You can see myself using up the revs as well. I decided to use my fuel on this lap to see if we can get ahead of Quentin, but it's going to be insanely close as he comes out the pits when he's got to put them hard tyres on. You can also see now that Org from the back of the grid is only 6 seconds behind, so you can see just how strong that Citroen was with its race pace, but again just wasn't strong enough to compete in terms of qualifying with the Audi TT. As we work our way over the start straight, just how close is this going to be with Quentin as we come out the pits? We're going over the line down to the straight. Let's see this now. It's going to be insanely close. Quentin's coming out of the pits. Quentin goes a little bit too aggressive, and I actually panicked and kind of cost me the entry into this corner. We do get in the lead, but we haven't got the angle through the corner because we actually nearly started to slide because I thought he was going to come right over, and I think he realised his mistake very late and then backed out of it. But yeah, it was a little bit of an unsafe pit exit, but you can see that's actually given him the ability to go around the outside. We hold the inside. He backs out of that one and tries to go again and try and get the better speed through this section. You see we were slightly compromised, but now we're going to try and get it into the apex here on the throttle as early as we can. This is going to be pretty close. Hard tyres are warmed up on mine, but they're slightly worn. His are probably getting warmed up now as he goes for that wide fake to move up the inside. Brilliant move by him here. Fake to move up the inside. I had to go defensive. He then goes wide, and now he's got the run up the hill. We're going to have to rev out the Audi TT, even though our fuel is pretty low. You can see, is he be able to rev it out maximum? You can see on the left hand side, squeezes us to the outside of the track, just giving us a car width that is perfectly acceptable. And then we take that wider line, and now we're stuck behind. So a great battle, but unfortunately it looks like we're going to lose out in this race. But what a race this has been. I really enjoyed it. A good battle with Quentin, clean racing throughout, side by side, no real contact, no penalties, and I thoroughly enjoyed the race. So Quentin takes the win on the final lap. That strategy nearly worked by going on the hard tyres that lap earlier, but it just about failed when we did get squeezed when we came down the start straight. It was a bit aggressive by Quentin, but I don't think he realised the closing speeds from coming out the pits with a car coming down the straight. But yeah, what a brilliant race that was. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Not particularly rapid pace, obviously I'm not particularly good with the FF cars, but yeah, at least we're starting to learn how to drive these FF cars now. We actually had a pretty decent race at Suzuka as well in terms of race pace. Our race pace was actually okay. But yeah, we pick up 300 points. Quite happy with that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section if you enjoyed it. Also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed, and hit that notification button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks again for watching, everyone.